Good afternoon, everyone. I think it is. I'm Julie Owens. I'm PBC Research Strategy and Acting DVCR. And I'm delighted to be able to come along today and just talk to you briefly about your promotion application and really how to best present your research. But I also want to touch on how you actually build your research success so that you have a great track record and body of work and achievement to present. So I'm going to briefly touch on how you build that research success and importantly the impact it has, be it on knowledge or in its translation into a whole range of different benefits for our communities and stakeholders. I'm going to talk about first of all the questions you address, building a team so that you can actually undertake something substantial, critically resourcing, otherwise it's just not going to progress very quickly or at all in some disciplines, and finally impact, ensuring that you have impact, the sort of impact that's consistent with our mission as a university, but also impact you can describe. So first of all, in terms of what questions should you be asking in order to be able to really progress academically and really be one of the leaders in terms of your research. Mike Brooks likes to say eschew the incremental. I still haven't got around to changing it. I haven't come up with anything else at this point. So I think what it is, it's about really creativity, novelty in terms of the questions that you address. Not just adding to perhaps the existing body of work in an incremental way. Now much of your research, or some of your research at least, might have to consist of that, but you should always be looking for the big question. These will be difficult, but even in failing to completely address them or answer them, you'll have success. One way to do that and keep in mind is explore interdisciplinary boundaries or disciplinary boundaries, and that's because that forcing yourself or working to look at how other disciplines approach perhaps this question or set of questions, or just how they approach their questions generally, can really open up your mind to really be much more creative, I guess, in addressing particular questions, particularly complex ones or ones that will produce a big breakthrough. Also important to keep in mind that what the university mission is about is discovering new knowledge, but it's also about translating that into benefit for our communities here and around the world. And we now describe it as innovation, but it's translation in all sorts of ways. And either or a mixture of both is what the university will value, and it does value, and it will value in your promotion application when it's looking at your track record. You don't have to have all discovery research outcomes or some. It could in fact be a portfolio that's based around innovation. The next thing that's crucial is having a team, and this can be a virtual team, but it also can be an in-place real team co-located with you. The key thing is to work with the top people, seek out the best talent, but also the leaders in the field, and attempt to cultivate a real collaboration with them and learn from them. We say collaborate internationally. That really means look to find the best wherever they are. It could be locally, it could be nationally, but it well may be internationally. And really you're then taking yourself outside your comfort zone, business as usual, and are much more likely, I think, to have an innovative, creative approach to your work. And it's critical then to build a team, but keep in mind there's the team that you build in place, but there's also that team of collaborators that could be around the world and that give you additional opportunities, access to additional resources, both intellectual and otherwise. But it is important to build your own team, and really you start out working with undergraduates. It could be in research projects, summer scholarships, honours. You certainly need to recruit and develop PhD students, and hopefully as you go along, particularly as you start to attract resources to a greater extent, then you can be looking at talented early and mid-career postdocs. Importantly, you must make the most of the resources you do manage to attract. You must make the most of the trainees that you're responsible for, and really being able to project manage effectively, manage yourself, good personal effectiveness, and importantly, compliance. We live in an increasingly regulatory sort of environment, I guess, but it's absolutely crucial that you don't get yourself and your group into unnecessary difficulties, I guess, because you've missed some compliance issues and so on. And that's about research ethics, integrity, but a whole range of other elements as well. The funding body may require you to expend all your monies before the end of a certain year, a certain date. Don't miss that. So resourcing, really challenging. It was always challenging, but more challenging than ever. I think the key thing always has been, but particularly now, is to seek funding from many different sources, local, national, but international. I think it's important that you look at the whole range of types of schemes that are available. It can be projects, fairly standard, but it could be programs, be part of a big program team, part of a centre application. Look for fellowships. Even if you have a continuing position, you're eligible for fellowships of various types, not all of them, but many of them. Don't ignore philanthropic funding. Also, we're in the process of developing a crowdfunding policy. Now, it has to be said this is envisaged as only ever being a modest source of income, but for some disciplines that could be quite substantial. As much as anything, it's probably about building our external engagement, but not to be ignored. Most importantly, engage with industry and government, and we're certainly working hard. We're getting ready to, through Adelaide Innovation, one of the major themes in the research strategic plan, to launch the incubator up on the corner of Portland and North Terrace. There's going to be a whole range of support services there that are going to be available to you. It's really going to make it a lot easier for you to engage with industry, to know what the opportunities are that are out there. And that extends to Adelaide Global, because we're certainly building a high degree of engagement and productive partnerships with various regions around the world, particularly China, for example. Finally, impact. This is all about actually making a material contribution to knowledge, to translation, to generate benefit. It's important to keep that in mind from the start. If you ask the big questions or tough questions and really are creative with that, you will generate findings that must have impact. But it's important to ensure that impact is realised. Now, when it comes to publications, go for the best journals. Really try and make the publication accessible as widely as possible, in terms of someone from outside your discipline could read it and get, a sense of what it's about. Go perhaps for general journals rather than specialist ones as a first port of call. The same with innovation, and that is to understand what you have. Is there the potential for innovation? To again work with, I think, the strategic pipeline for innovation that we're building up more, and make sure you make the most of it. It's important to communicate your achievements, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later. When you're about to publish something, or there's, have patent something, license something, talk to the media unit. You've got Altmetrics now in your Aurora web page list. Really important to maximise that. And make sure you are known and seen. Part of building up that collaborative network is going to conferences, but going up and talking to people about your work, about their work, and building that network. So when it comes to the inputs and outputs that are going to matter in terms of ultimately a promotion application or applying for funding, fellowships, everything really that matters in terms of resourcing, the obvious inputs are funding through a range of schemes. It can be competitive grants, or it can be industry funding, consultancies and contracts. It's the students recruited, and importantly when we come to outputs, publications, but there's a number of outputs that some people may generate, such as patents, licenses, reports, which are really surrogate impact measures for translation, for example. So these are all important. It's important to understand how you can use them as evidence. The conferences you've attended, but particularly invited plenaries and keynotes, and it's important to contribute to organising conferences, to build up collaboration links that increase your chances. And frankly, I just ask organising committees, people on organising committees that you know, to invite you. Prizes and awards, we're making a big effort to contact people across the university in relation to a whole range of local and national and even international prizes and awards that are available, and to provide some support for people to be nominated or to nominate themselves. And we're hoping we'll have the same success as we had last year when we started with the South Australia Science Awards and so on. Outcomes for your students in terms of completions, grades, really important. great evidence that you are really exerting research leadership and delivering what the university wants. So just coming to applying for promotion, I just want to make a few key points, and I'm sure it's similar to what Philippa and others have made. The obvious things you have to provide is a CV, a commentary, and evidence of your achievements. For research, publications lists, but importantly, evidence of publication quality. And again, we just have surrogate indices of these, but it's important to have them and to gather them and keep them in mind. And there can be other types of evidence depending on the discipline you're in and what sort of work you've been doing. I want to make one point, but I think people are getting a better feeling for this, and that is the academic role statement and the benchmarks there are minimum standards for going into formal performance management. They are not your target when you're going for promotion at the next level. They are not as a target. So when you're really planning your research career and you're seeking to drive towards success, you've got to get well above that. Okay, that's what your target should be. And I should add that we're desperately working hard to come up with aspirational benchmarks so that will give people a better guide. Now, they're not going to be the standard or the cut-off for promotion or not, but I think it's going to give people a better sense of what is reasonable. And they will be in a discipline-specific, sensitive fashion, and we'll be using the GO8, for example, as a source of that kind of benchmarking. So 4 key things about research outputs. You need to look for what evidence you can provide about quality, and metrics is an obvious thing. Peer review, more difficult, but I know the Faculty of Arts and Rachel Ankeny are working on ways to address that, and we're looking for them to share that with professions. Quantity, both the quality and the quantity evidence and metrics have to be discipline specific, because they can vary substantially. Need to provide context too. What is outstanding research achievement in this particular discipline? But you need to look for the leaders in the field to, who are and perhaps people at a comparable stage of career in order to really put that correct context. And finally, evidence of creativity. And this is important in terms of the narrative you construct. You've got to try and put in there a bit about your thinking, why what you've done is creative and innovative in a generation of new knowledge and so on way. It's important to have got out there and really create a bit of a profile through conferences and other things so that your referees can recognise or know about the fact that you are creative, you're a leader in thinking and new thinking in this field. They may have to rely on what's in the narrative, so just keep that in mind. You're not just going to present a list and numbers. You've actually got to explain a bit about the path, the journey you went on. I hate saying that, but anyway. So in terms of quality, there are a range of types of evidence. If people are collaborating with you, that can be evidence. Interdisciplinary research that's successful means that you're doing some challenging things. Obvious things, prizes and awards, recognition in terms of Learned Academy membership, journal editing, but importantly, hard metrics. Again, recognising that can be a challenge around peer review based disciplines, but again, that's something we hope we'll address shortly. And altmetrics as well. So the ways in which you can pull out that kind of evidence, you've got your own individual academic profile data, Google Scholar, which helpfully includes outputs relation to humanities and social sciences. How meaningful the citation rates and so on are is another question. There are era-based or related benchmarked relative citation rates. Importantly, your individual academic profile has more up-to-date normalised citation indices. So it's really how well cited you are compared to everyone else in your field publishing in similar journals. There's a lot of relevant evidence in Aurora. Important to make sure that you've got that up to date and that you don't have missing publications and so on. And getting an ORCID number is very helpful at ensuring that you can maintain that and maintain it easily. And also a PhD supervision record. So in terms of quantity, I've talked about discipline standards and so on. And we, as I said, through the aspirational benchmarks we want to provide in terms of individual academic profiles, we hope that'll become more readily available. But talk to your Associate Dean Research to get access to that discipline standard if you haven't already got it. So just a bit more on publication quality then. These are the range of, if you like, indices you can use for that. The RCI, the NCI, which we do ourselves with a new licence we've got for Thomson Reuters. Quality factor from peer review, which arts and hopefully professions are trying to generate where they're available. In terms of quality of the output, you can refer to your grant funding achievements. That's a reflection of it as well, but in itself an important type of evidence, as is the number of students. So creativity and relative to the discipline, this is where the narrative is really important, particularly if you can point to reviews, for example, or editorials or commentaries perhaps, which were highly cited or well received. If someone wrote a commentary on one of your publications, all of that is really helpful independent evidence that you've made a contribution of distinction. Focus on your strongest outputs in terms of their importance and impact, and relative citation rate isn't everything. You can actually publish something which is really changes a particular field quite a lot. You can talk about capacity building of teams that the best in the world, or nationally at least, work with, and so on. All of that is to help your referee out if they don't know you directly or are not so familiar with your field and the body of work, for example. I've really just put this up to remind you to go look at the general standard for level B and also subsequently for level C, so that you know what you're aiming for in qualitative terms. A lot of these are things that you have to do, tick box in a sense, but where is it that it's saying what the standard in terms of your research is that's required? And level B, it's not too onerous. You're expected to carry out activities to maintain or develop your research relevant to the profession or discipline, but supposed to show evidence of experience, creative achievement and or technical achievement. But really, to guarantee promotion, I'd be, really highlighting where you've gone beyond that. And that's it. So no C's. This is just level B?
Level B and C.
Oh, okay. Oh, fine. Okay. No, that's fine. So really with level C, it's where you start to see distinction and leadership coming in more. So it's really important to make sure your narrative focuses on that. And importantly, in developing your research career trajectory and so on, to remind yourself to undertake activities or make sure your current activities give you the opportunity to demonstrate that and accumulate the evidence. So be pragmatic as well. But really, I think being able to point to grants, point to a team you've built up and so on, all of that speaks to research leadership. But it's really the thought leadership and so on that I think most people tend to forget a bit. And that's why I was saying it's good to write reviews that are highly accessible, that really take your work and put it in the light of what's already known and show how together that really is a bit of a step change in thinking and so on. And if you do a good enough job of that, it'll be highly cited, very highly cited, and if you're lucky, it'll be the subject to a commentary and so on. And don't be afraid to recommend to editors and so on that someone could write a commentary. So I'll stop there and welcome any questions. Yeah.
I've got a question about peer review.
Yeah.
So would you recommend us including, if we have it, reviews reports of a journal article or book? Would that glowing, if you feel glowing reports, would you kind of consider that?
Yeah, it's a tricky thing. You don't have a huge amount of space. If it was, that's why I like to say to people, if you've got a commentary that was published in a journal or somewhere, that's usually the better way to go. Yeah. If the publication has appeared in a high quality journal, that says obviously the referees thought it was really good. If you were awarded a project grant, that means the reviewers thought what you proposed and your track record and your capacity to deliver was really good. So I'm not that keen on it, but it's I don't want to dismiss it out of hand. I have seen people do it, but I think you want to talk about, I've published this in one of the best journals, I was awarded something on a highly competitive scheme. I'd do that first. Yeah.
You might also need to be careful the journal may not give you permission Yeah, that's
it
right.
may not be something you can actually
You can
use
actually
other
use,
than for the
yeah.
purposes of the application. So
Sure.
you might want to check that their policy is
That's
that
right.
as well.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Yep. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I also got a question about in-press publications and
Yep.
publish our in-press.
Yep.
What are the typical evidence, what is the typical evidence that the panel would look at in-press publications? You provide ISBN, publication date?
Oh,
DOI?
yes. Well, usually you have the identifier.
Yeah.
You know, there's that unique identifier, and that's fine. It's whatever is acceptable for ARC and NHMRC, and
Yeah.
you know, it's that unique.
DOI.
Yeah, DOI. Yep, and that's fine because everyone. I mean, that's on record,
Yep.
so there's no argument about it. But make sure that it is actually published. It's really important now with ARC and NHMRC because they're getting very technical, quite rightly, I think. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Well, good luck.